Jack, as with any micro-budget independent film, obviously this is a long time in the making, but I'm particularly interested in the origins of this story. Where did you have the inception for this? Where did it come from?
Yes, so I mean, how can you not just love car washes generally? That was I think like an aesthetic starting point is all these hand car washes are popping up everywhere. Especially like all over Bradford and where I'm from, like they just seem to be everywhere. And it's like this sort of that tin shed scrapyard aesthetic.
It's like a cultural staple, isn't it?
Yeah. And but it was fascinating. Like, as in, I really liked the aesthetic of it. And I thought it was intrinsically quite cinematic. But it's the fact that I think that there's the whole world under one small tin roof, and it's like you've got different diaspora, and you've got people from all different cultures, and like they're living and they're working and often living and existing together, just like down the road from my house. And it's kind of, but these are like these very invisible people as well at the same time. And I think I was quite drawn to it, especially with everything that was like in the news, and you hear stories about modern slavery and trafficking and smuggling. I think I was very drawn, and I wanted to make a short film there. And this is a very long time ago, so part of the process was going into car washes to try and to get permission, obviously, to shoot in this particular car wash that I really loved, that was the most cinematic car wash you've ever seen in your life. And I went in, and I'd go in and I'd ask, and I'd try and find the manager, and I met this guy who Zully, the character, the kind of boss of the car wash that features in the start, is based on. And he was this kind of really quite scary man, bit of a kind of like, type A gangster. I had to tone him down for the film, actually.
He was quite intimidating.
He was really intimidating. But I really wanted to shoot in this car wash. So I just ham up the flattery, I'm like, I really want this car wash. This is the best car wash. And he responded quite well to that.
Yeah.
And then I became like his kind of little film director pet or whatever that he'd have. And he'd be showing me, like, he wants to film in my car wash.
Yeah.
I've got the best car wash.
He
of
had
all
pride
the car wash.
now.
No, exactly, yeah. So then he's showing me around, and there was a lot of back and forth. It went on for months, and it was like talking about money, and I was going down with little envelopes of cash, and just being like, I'm putting a down payment. And at the time he was ringing me as well, because he's like, and he's trying to say, he's saying to me, "Oh, do you want any? I've got some women from Belgium. Do you want these women?" I was like, "Well, there's no women in the film, so I think I'm all right." Big red flag, obviously.
Massive, yeah.
But I really loved this car wash.
You wanted it badly.
I'm like, I just ignore it. Go down. And then there was this one time that I did, that went down, and he's got this young Romanian guy, must be like in his early 20s and what have you, and I realised he's his sort of right-hand man. And because a lot of his staff were Romanian, so he had this guy who was quite better at English, because a lot of them didn't actually speak English at all.
Yeah. And
so he was like his right-hand man, and he said, "Come with me," and he took me into the back rooms, which were like these offices at the back, an office, but it was actually, we opened the door and it was just wall-to-wall beds, it was just mattresses everywhere.
Yeah.
And that was quite shocking, because actually I was stepping over people, and there was a lad I remember in the corner of the room asleep, and there was somebody else just on a laptop, and I'm like, all right. And then across from us, so I sat down, there's Zully on the right, and then there's the right-hand man, the interpreter on the left, and there's like this 17-year-old boy who's sat, and he's sat across from us, and he's like petrified, and he's come for a job interview.
Yeah.
And so Zully and this guy, they spend the next like 10 minutes just kind of bullying him and humiliating him. No intention of giving him a job. He was essentially just showing off to me. He was like showing his power. And I just sat there like awkwardly, not knowing what to do, and thinking, all right, I'm in too deep here. Like, I really don't want to be here. And I left. And then, I mean, the whole thing went to shit anyway with the location, because he was... he was arrested not long afterwards because he was trafficking women from Belgium. Okay. And that was what they were.
That was a red flag.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
Big red flag. But so we shot somewhere else, and then I kept thinking about the boy and the interpreter, and especially I thought I was going to make a story. I think I was drawn to the boy, but then I realized no, I'm more drawn to the interpreter. And actually, how did he feel about the fact that he was kind of just bullying his own countrymen? He was sat there, and it was like he'd become complicit in that system that abuses him, and like in order to survive, he'd had to sort of leave his morals at the door.
Yeah.
And that was the starting point for for Cristi as a character,
Yeah.
the kind of gateway into, and then it was a process of 10 years of going back into car washes. And anyway, really long answer, sorry, but it's 12
No.
years, so I just,
Yeah, it's a long
It's
time
like-
in the
yeah, yeah,
making.
yeah.
And I think audiences often forget that micro-budget and independent film does take this long. And I think we hear so many stories about the shoot and the time that you spent on set, but that was a couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago now as well, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
So Holly, as producer as well, it would be great to hear a little bit about how post-shoot, post-production, how do we get the film to this stage? How do we get it here in cinemas? And what are the struggles of that distribution process?
There's a lot of struggles. I think we kind of went about the distribution the same way we made the film, which was trying to do a lot with not very little. And we knew that things were not really in our favor. We had a black and white film. Yeah. It's it's a kind of a thinking piece. We're not going for like visible casting in the UK, and we wanted that to be authentic. So we always knew things was going to be difficult, but alongside that, you've got like a really cautious industry that also don't want to take risks, and so there's a lot of we love the film. No, we love the film, but I'm a lot of people are quite scared of it, and not really sure what to do with it, but we knew that we really didn't want to end up like a lot of micro budget films are, especially after Edinburgh, and that was a real boost of morale for us. There are some people that like it, and we didn't want it to just disappear online and just be this thing that just gets forgotten about, and we wanted to make sure that the people we felt passionate about that were responding to the film had a chance to see it and to see it properly on a cinema. And so there's been like another year's struggle since Edinburgh of really rallying behind that and trying to find a different way of doing it. And it'd be lovely to kind of hand it over to someone who has the skill and all that, but I've learned like an invaluable amount of things about how distribution works, how cinemas work, the perspectives there, and that's quite interesting. Seeing like what the decision makings and working alongside an actual distributor who can answer the questions that I really don't know and like do the legwork there. But I think it's just good to do anything you can to get it out, and I think it's just nice to be alongside people who sort of feel that same passion.
Absolutely, and I think like, locally focused distributors obviously make this struggle a little bit lighter as well. Thinking about how this is a very thoughtful film with themes that are often quite heavy. I think obviously we're pulled in Tudor by performances like yourselves as Cristi. Let's talk a little bit about Cristi. So especially in the middle section of the film, when I've watched it, those driving sequences, they're very captivating, and I think it's where we get to understand you past working at the car wash. Understand that character with a lot more depth. How was it exploring Cristi as a character when you read Jack's script for the first time? Did you understand that character straight away? Did it take some time? How was that for you?
Obviously, it took some time, definitely. But when I started to learn the lines, I was interested in how can I make myself that tough?
Yeah.
That tough guy in the beginning of the movie, because I'm definitely nothing like that guy. So how can I do that?
Yeah.
And the more complex part of working on this character is actually deconstructing that tough guy and becoming more, let's say, myself.
Yeah.
Like how can you show that tough guy becoming clumsy, becoming comical, becoming human, becoming emotional, missing home, missing his grandmother, and things like that. Was the most interesting thing about working on this character and working with Jack and Erdal and Robbie, obviously, and everybody. It was the complexity of this deconstruction of the role.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, something else that you bring to the role is those moments of humor as well. There are some points in the film where we laugh, you know.
But actually they're not mine. They're Jack's. Yeah, Jack wrote those moments, and my job as an actor is to understand what the writer wrote, what did he want to say, and why did he write the way he wrote. So I understood it immediately. Those moments, I understood them immediately, and I love them.
I think a lot of people did too. We heard some laughs earlier on as well, but I think the humor helps to make the story a lot more human. Like you said, Jack, I think it's important that you were brought in by these power dynamics, but this is about two people at the end of the day that are united by this quest, almost on the road on this quest, and all takes place in the Yorkshire Dales, the majority of this film. So we do start off at the car wash, but then we bring it into the Dales, and that decision to pull it out of the urban and bring it to the rural. What was your decision behind that? It's a beautiful landscape. Why there?
So I think it's like, because originally it was actually all, early incarnations of the film were kind of set in this world of car washes and stuff. And then I thought, oh no, I'll just find a way to get rid of their mobile phones and go somewhere where there's no signal, so they can't just be, there's a big impetus almost. It's a silly answer, but it's like, that's my silly answer. But I think like I am quite drawn to, I didn't want to make an issue film, and I didn't want to make like a kind of film that's sort of just telling or reflecting the things that we would see in the news or that we think we have an understanding of already. And so it's like maybe making it a little bit more allegorical and like taking it out. And I think actually, the primary thing, I guess it's like a story about, it's the natural progression of like, of what happens. It's like following, what would you do? There's a logic to it. But then it was like, I want it to be more kind of I want to understand what it feels like to be displaced and to be in the situation. And I think if you take it out into the Dales and you take them somewhere they've never been, and then see how they behave, and you strip them of all the kind of things like the frameworks and all the sort of the kind of conditions that we're used to seeing them in. It's like we see them more as humans. They're able to kind of be themselves a little bit more. And that road, I guess that journey sort of like echoes the sort of the idea of displacement and being uprooted from somewhere and going into somewhere unfamiliar, and having to kind of like adapt to the changing environment all the time. And so like that was it just seemed, I don't know, it naturally just kind of spawned out of the themes that came from the setup to the film. So I think, it naturally went that way. And also, it's maybe there's a kind of part of me that's like, this is too intense to even try and make an ensemble film in a car wash. Like, it's like, let's get it out and say something else that's just between these two men and boil it down to something a little bit more. In this big expanse as well. No, exactly. Yeah.
I think, those scenes, especially, for the last 2/3 of the film where we are in the Dales, it is very bare, and we are faced with the dilemma, the same dilemma that our characters are faced with as well. The last 10-15 minutes of the film, the ceremony itself, those funeral rites, they are very crucial and open to all of you. The inclusion of the Islamic funeral rites and the inclusion of it in a way that wasn't forced. It was very graceful and very subtle. I'm Muslim myself, and I think the fact that, like you said, you didn't want to make an issue film. You didn't want to force the fact that this was a film with that kind of representation. It was very natural, I am curious what it was like working with a film with a culture and a religion that wasn't familiar to you. Did it require a lot of learning from all of you? Did you feel like the actor for Nassar and Motmin helped a lot with that? Any contributions towards that? How was that inclusion in the film for you guys?
Yeah, I think, it had to have that, the funeral and what have you, because it's kind of, it's like a non-negotiable in Islam or whatever, like you have to bury the body. It's like, you've got 24 hours, you've got to do it. So it's like, it's always going to end up in that, it's going to have to go that way. It's more like that. So that just seemed like an inevitable consequence of the situation. I didn't really, that ending was always like, we're going to get there, but it's like, what's the journey en route and what does that feel like? Psychologically, to sort of battle with that dilemma about like survival and self-preservation versus your own like kind of moral judgment and stuff. There's a book I didn't, because in terms of the actual funeral rite itself, like Motmin was really useful because he's a Muslim and he sort of had like quite a lot of he knew how to do it delicately. I had a lot of questions and stuff, but really those were just kind of details. Really, it was getting under the skin of what that means to do a burial and why that's important.
Yeah.
And what, you know, and the ritual, obviously one of the oldest traditions, and it kind of transcends religion in a lot of ways, and it's more of a human thing about just dignity in general.
Emotional, getting to the motivations behind it. Absolutely. And Tudor, was that, you know, understanding Cristi's, you know, confusion initially at, you know, why Yusuf was so intent on getting that done? Was that a learning process for you as well as an actor? Was that new information for you?
It was definitely new because I'm not used to that kind of ceremonies. But I think that helped me not knowing exactly what
coming
will
fresh.
happen. Not knowing what exactly will happen. So I just stood there quiet and just watched it.
So I think you're saying that it helped you kind of understand the character a lot more as well from Jack's script as well. So kind of, you know, because Cristi wasn't very aware of this background as well, and you weren't as well, so it matched up quite well.
Exactly, that's what I mean. So I didn't have to study that thing.
I understand.
Because it was my part of telling the story. It was Erdal's part.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, and I think it's always going to be relevant, you know, whether it has the religious aspect or the cultural aspect. And I do think that the fact that the themes in this aren't, you know, made into an issue means that the film will always be resonant. Like you said, you had this idea 10, 12 years ago. You shot a couple of years ago as well. Holly, do you think this is going to be a film that is more resonant now more than ever?
I think it never changes. It seems like the conversations we're having now about why the film is important and why we want, you know, wider audiences to see it feel like the same questions we were having 10 years ago when you were writing the script.
The inception of the 12 years ago. It never changes, does it? It's all. Yeah. It's like the kind of the thing is like this. It's this, you know, single story problem, or the two, you know, there's a story of the migrants and refugees as victims, and then there's a story of them as criminals and all perpetrators of this and that and what have you. I think so it's important to try and have a different story, you know, in the middle, I suppose, that's like more humanizing, and more zoomed in and about the individual. Yeah. And so, you know, but that never really goes away, I don't think, and it's kind of so I think it is resonant, unfortunately. Yeah. But I think it's important to like have a kind of new try and create a fresh angle on it, because I know how I feel about it, obviously in a certain way, but it's like I want to try and challenge, you know, something with the story and give a fresh perspective, because I feel like otherwise things are just everyone's just repeating themselves,
like an
and
echo
not getting
chamber.
Anywhere. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
absolutely.
And there's a lot of conversations as well with people like when they've seen the film that they connect with on some level, and they, you know, tell you their whole story and how like similar it is. And so there's like two levels. It's like it's, you know, a social one and a political one, but it's also, you know, personal and emotional for some people. So.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, all I can think of with The Well is like it was just the biggest pain in the ass to try and shoot. It was like originally it was supposed to be a sinkhole. There are real sinkholes in the Dales that just go on forever, and they're really freaky to even stand near. But logistically we couldn't shoot anywhere near an actual real one, and we couldn't get high enough to do it. So we found this. We were walking around. I think we were in like the 4th day of shooting and what have you. And we were like, what we're gonna do? We can't get up there. And we saw this little, just a well out, you know, on the moor. It was just like this, you know, the stone circle kind of thing. But it was only 2 foot deep. So that, so we had like, it was like, right, I had this vision in my head of this really deep, because you just feel, if you have this, if you're there and you're looking down at it, it's like, you don't even have to explain it. There's just something so horribly, like, existentially terrifying about a never-ending abyss of blackness all the way down. It's nothing. So it's, we couldn't shoot that for real. And so we shot it, in this 2 foot well, and through like, I think we had like a green, we were like, has anyone got anything green? And we just grabbed something from the van and chucked it down, and
this
we're like,
was
right.
a fix it in post.
Yeah, it was just like fix it. And then I was just like, what? The next 2 days of the shoot, I was like, this is rubbish. This is like the worst cheapest rubbish dream sequence ever. It's not gonna work. But then we found a magician to do it, and like he made it even deeper and more surreal and more weird. And it was just like, all right, yeah, let's really lean into that, because it's kind of, I don't know, like I said, there's just something really terrifying about it. And it's to do, the whole film is to do with death, and like, where do you go, and what's the point, and what does a burial mean, and all these things. And so what is the difference between just chucking it down into the abyss? And it's like, because is that where we all end up anyway? Are we just in darkness forever and nothing matters? Or it's like, what's the difference? So
Very
yeah,
existential.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm glad you asked. A lot of people seem to be, what's that goat about? You got a goat,
Love it or hate it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's clearly
I just thought, I didn't realize. I was like, well, it's a goat, like, because this is you just, and you see a goat, and you follow the goat. You just like the goat, they create a path, and you go with it, and it's a mountain goat.
But there was also
so
Kurdish. There was a Kurdish quote, wasn't there?
No, well, it's not a quote. It was because
fable.
So it's like, no, it was just a film I saw about this. It's a documentary about this Kurdish guy, and he was taking his brothers over to the UK, like they were sort of going overland and trying to get over here. And then they get lost at one point, and then they see a goat, and he says, there's a Kurdish saying, if you ever get lost, just look for a goat and you'll find your way. And it was like the light bulb moment. And I was like, right, it makes sense somehow. I don't know, I can't really explain. It just came into my head. And it's an image, but it just feels right. It's like, at this point, there's just a goat.
It's like, a rugged terrain trend of
it's
mountain goat.
It's evocative of his homeland and all this kind of stuff. But also, if you put an animal in your film, then apparently it sells better.
That wasn't a conversation before.
No, we realised that now. I wanted it on the poster. I kept saying I want the goat somewhere, like just the goat. But we could, The actual cutting and everything I do myself, and because I've always edited, and I think I have an editor in my head when I'm directing anyway. I'm always thinking about the edit, but like definitely didn't do it in isolation. And it was like we were a team, so we kind of and we were very open with each other from the very beginning, So like about getting into the nitty-gritty of where it's working and where it's not. So like the script, I would still share it, and Hollywood feedback on it, and my DP Robbie is amazing, like got a story mind, so share it with him. And then we just talk about it that way. So I did the physical cutting or what have you, but people were still feeding into, because you can't just do it in isolation on your own and just be like, wham, bam, it's done. And then we had a screening which Holly had organised. So we sort of like hustled to try and get some sort of industry people in the room to watch like a work in progress cut of the film, which was the most like excruciating experience of my entire life. The film was nearly 2 hours, I think, at that point, and it was just, I could see this producer in front of me, and I'm sure her head's just like, I can't see her face, but I just know she's like, oh.
You can see like her silhouette falling asleep,
And it was like, oh, I know I can get 25 minutes off this film. And it's just, straight away, like just the feeling in the room of seeing these people, and the energy of where they just start to lose the attention a little bit. And so that was like huge for getting to like a third cut or whatever, It was always a battle to just get people to watch it, tell me what they think, be really brutally honest. The physical cutting I do, but it was a team effort really.